Hello, Gadget UK here again. I think I should be on the air. Let's just see if you guys can see and hear me. It's same as yesterday really. Wife's away, got nothing much better to do tonight, so rather than just watch TV, I thought I'll play on the Neo Geo tonight. So I was going to go on the Archimedes. I might do that maybe tomorrow. Can you hear me okay? Is the volume level okay? I did increase it slightly, I think, from the last stream. In fact, I'm telling lies, it might be the same. So I'll switch the MVS on. Hang on. And in fact, before I switch the MVS on, I'll show you something. I don't think I've shown this, I've mentioned it a number of times. Can you see this? This is one of the 5-volt power savers from Biwak, and I've soldered it in line here, so you've got a normal DC jack on the end and a DC jack socket on that side with some heat shrink encapsulating it. But yeah, it's the 5-volt saver PCB that Peter, Hans Biwak, created for the C64. And I use that to protect my MVS. And it did save my MVS actually when the last power supply blew. So let me just try and switch this on. One problem with it, if I'm honest, is it's with the switch I have on this MVS, the power switch, it trips the thing as soon as you switch it on. It's like an inrush of current, I think Biwak explained it, described it as to me. So let's just move the chat over there. Yeah, you can't see what I'm doing, just move the chat. So this is Kraut Busters for the MVS. As I say, I've only played this, I don't know, 2 or 3 times since I got it. I was very impressed with it when I first played it. It's a game from the MG dev team, so this is a brand new game for the Neo Geo, released this year. It's been out a few months now. I'm quite late in terms of getting a video up on this. Comment there, let's just have a look. I'll just try and catch up with some of the comments. You just watch the intro here. The methods just look in which will show you the stream up notification. It's because there's no video. Yeah, I don't know why the notification came up and the chat. I've got no visibility of it at all. I guess I need to log in, log out, and have a look at my own page there on YouTube to see what's going on. Real Phoenix, hello. Yeah, if you've not already subscribed to the Real Phoenix on YouTube, you should check his channel out. He does, I think it's a French chap, and he does some really good mod videos. Often makes and designs his own little PCBs. And in fact, if you saw the video on my channel where I did the SNES, what was it, Star Fox? I think it was Star Fox. Yeah, Star Fox conversion, I think. The little PCB I used was one of his, I think. I might be getting confused between that and the Super RPG thing, Super Mario RPG, because that's a similar thing. I think he has a little PCB for that, but he's done little PCBs for all sorts of different things. Yeah, so check out his channel. I'll post a link in the description to this video and perhaps in the comments afterwards. So just catch up again. Socket. Yeah, I really should change that image there that I've got in the background, that you see in the videos when there's no video stream there kind of thing. That was taken from the Amiga 500 that I purchased. It was one of the first things I repaired actually before my channel started. And as you can see from that photo, someone had absolutely made a right state of the world. The socket, they'd used a screwdriver and levered the chip out, and they pulled the whole top of the socket off, so it's just in bits, and it was like taped together. The axis was kind of taped in there, and the bits of the sides that had come off were just taped, and it was an awful mess. It's a shame really that we repaired it before my channel existed, otherwise you would have been quite interested to see how bad that board was. So the good thing with this game is you can pause it at various points and catch up with the chat. I'm probably not going to be able to keep up with the chat, but anyway, we'll stick. In fact, before I do anything, let me just reset this, because I'll show you. Let's press the reset button. Just give me a sec. Find it, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought they'd fix this. This is one of the bugs where when you do a reset, it's not supposed to go to the crosshatch. Yeah, if I do a soft reset, it's okay now, I think. Yeah. So pressing the reset button, you go straight to the crosshatch with this game. It's part of the protection, I think, that they built into it. But holding the start button down, you can get into the settings. So one of the nice things with this game is, as I say, it's a brand new game, 2019. You can still order this game now, but it costs crazy money. It really does. I pre-ordered this. It must be getting on for almost 4 years ago. I think certainly 3 whole years ago, and it was a pre-order price of something like €429, which is a hell of a lot of money. But I knew that it was going to be, a long haul thing. It'd be a few years at least. I didn't realise it could be 3 years before they released it. But yeah, the Engineer Dev team, they take ages to develop things, but eventually, they do deliver. It took the best part of the 3 years to pay the thing off on my credit card. It sat on there for like 3 years. I literally paid it off about 2 months before they shipped it. So it's a lot of money, but as you probably gathered from my channel, I am a bit of a Neo Geo fan. So anything like this, it felt like I have to get, really. Although second-hand value, it might not hold its value 10 years from now. You'll see them on eBay for 50 quid each or something. So you can see there's absolutely loads and loads of settings you can customise here about how the game plays out, how the weapon selection and stuff, and there's an option you can switch on off the slide move. I'll show you that in game in a minute. Weapon locks, air dashes, that's a nice feature. And if you haven't already guessed, this is kind of paying homage to the Metal Slug series. It's kind of like a love letter to Metal Slug. It got a lot of criticism, a lot of flack on the forums and things, Neo Geo forum in particular, because people were saying you can't remake an MVS, a Metal Slug game. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. You can't remake a Metal Slug game. You can't expect to produce some sort of homebrew version of Metal Slug and it be anywhere near as good as a Metal Slug. And actually, this game has been done really well, and it really does stand on its own 2 feet. Hopefully you'll agree as you see a bit more of this. But yeah, you can change the controls, you can change the high score entry there as well, so it automatically puts you that name in when you get a high score, which is quite cool. Where's the other one? Customise it. Yeah, characters. You can customise the characters as well, so you can change the colour of the skins and things there for the torso, legs, and the skin, which is really cool. Actually, I like that. What else have we got? So then you've got sort of operator menu. Normally you'd have to hold a button combination down. I think you set the dip switches actually to get into the dip switch settings, and this is kind of the equivalent of that. So you can choose whether you've got continues and whether the how to play thing comes up, and whether what your default difficulty is there, and a few other settings. I haven't needed to change these. This reduce sprite flicker, I hardly noticed any sprite flicker whatsoever, but nevertheless it's really good that they've got these options there. I suspect if I played 2 players, if I had another player now playing, we might see a bit more flicker, because obviously you've got another character on the screen there, and all the overhead that's associated with that. But you've also got a sensor menu there: gore, violence, fall, nudity, strong language, tobacco, alcohol, animal harm, all on. I haven't actually tried changing any of those. I don't know whether that's just a joke. I suspect it probably is, but you never know. It might actually affect some of the things. And as you can see, this is where you update the firmware. And I've got a video. Well, I did have a video. I don't know if I'm going to upload it now. I probably will do at some point, but yeah, I've got a video showing how you do the update on this. It really is just as simple as taking the shell, undoing the screws out of the shell, take the PCBs out, and there's a little micro SD slot on the PCB. You just put a micro SD card with a file in there. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes to do the update, and it's a bit nerve-wracking. When I did it, there was nothing coming on the screen, and then it was just cross-hatching all the time, and I was like, oh no, I've bricked it. And I didn't realise, couldn't not use the cart for about 2 or 3 weeks. I just needed to clean the contacts. I plugged it back in, straight away it came up saying updating firmware, and I left it for what seemed like an eternity. I'm sure it was longer than 10 minutes. It seemed about 15 minutes or 20 minutes if I'm honest, but nevertheless, yeah, that's how you update it. The idea being, as I say, you can still order this. You can buy I think you can pre-order the the AES copies of this now, but again, it's crazy money. And the idea is, with the MVS, they produce these updates. Well, the idea is to try and not get any updates, but obviously if there is an update, you can apply it to the MVS that way with a micro SD card. But eventually, when there are no bugs at all, people have tested it for a few months, so we're talking like September, October this year probably, that's when the AES version will be released, and that's not updatable. So that'll have the very latest firmware that us MVS beta testers effectively have been testing for them. Anyway, let's come out of that. Let's go straight into the game. So you've got two different modes here. You've got T mode, tactical, and you've got C mode, crush and kill. Now the C mode is kind of like a Contra mode. So if you've ever played any Contra games, it's kind of like that, like a fast run and gun sort of thing, whereas the T mode is much more, in my mind, like Metal Slug, I think. But there are masks. You'll see what I mean by masks in a minute. You can collect these little masks and give you power-ups. And you've also got 3 different difficulty rankings here. I'll just try and catch up with the comments before I start this, just to see if there's anything critical. I missed loads of questions and things last night, I realised. Yeah, decrease the game volume, no problems. Hang on. I think. How's that? Is that any better? Yeah, it's Christian asking if I could reduce that a little bit, I think. Should be. Let's just turn it down a tiny bit more. Hang on. Yeah, let's try that. Let's go with that. So let's go with tactical, and we'll put it on easy because I'm a bit of a wuss. And like I say, I haven't played this much at all. So you get to pick from one of your 3 characters here, just like Metal Slug. Go with the woman there. And unlike Metal Slug, you can pick your route here. This is kind of more in common with Shock Troopers, you know, in that sort of game. Where you can, but I mean, obviously at the start you can only go with the first location. There's no other option. But as you play a little bit into this, multiple routes become available to you. I'll show you one of the features that's in 1.1, and that's a new mask they added, a pig mask. There, you collect that mask, it helps you find all the treasures and things. But nevertheless, I'll go with the chicken mask. So yeah, first thoughts when you see this, you think, oh, that looks a bit crazy. Why on earth did they go with a chicken head? It's not, you know, it just doesn't kind of fit. But it does kind of give it a bit of character, and each of the masks have got their own benefits to having them. You know, so like this one, I think it makes you jump higher. You can, if you hold the jump button down, you float down a bit slower. You can see those feathers there. So yeah, there's like a tactical advantage with using each mask. Not to mention the fact that with shots and things hitting you, it protects you from one shot. You know, you kind of like get one hit of invulnerability. Like Metal Slug, you can knife enemies when you get close to them. And unlike in Metal Slug with the hostages, you have to rescue chickens. And you can see the little chickens help, you know. They've got the red mask on the ninja or whatever it is, and firing little throwing stars there. You hold the D button down, and it's a bit like Shock Troopers that you can, what's the word? You know, it locks your aiming. So, for example, I could jump up and fire down like that. You know, I can't do it here. And it blocks me firing downwards. It's useful. Oh, yeah, you can see I lost the mask there from that hit. It's also useful when you're trying to shoot enemies in hard to reach locations and things. Not people fire that way, or backing off from an enemy and being able to keep firing. So it's quite cool. The music's very good. One thing I have noticed, it sounds a bit bitty to me. You might not pick that up. You're going to get some of that anyway with the compression of the stream. But just listening to it here, you know, straight away when I was first testing this, just before doing the stream, it sounds just like a little bit of noise there, and it's not coming from the MVS because I tried with the game actually, the official card. It wasn't doing it. And I think what it is, and I could be wrong, but I think they've compressed, you know, the original audio track, like from the CD audio, in a single PCM stream. You know, maybe one for left, one for right. So you know, there's some compression going on there. Whereas the typical way PCM is used in many other Neo Geo games, there are some exceptions, but in most of the games there, the PCM, you know, it's just for use for individual instruments. And it's, if you think of, say, mod files on the Amiga, and things like Octamed and, you know, stuff like that, works a similar way, that you've got the, you know, PCM files in ransomware and the individual, death animations, the individual notes and things, you know, make calls to play those samples at a specific frequency with various other effects and things to make them sound a specific way. So, you know, you end up with slightly better quality music because you've got lots of space, you know. You see what I mean? Because all you were doing is using using space there for the samples rather than the whole thing being recorded as an entire stream, if you like. A bit like MP3. Think of an MP3. MP3 is way less efficient than, say, a mod file for that very reason. You can compress and everything. It's like a full recording of the whole thing. So yeah, some nice graphics on the characters and things in the background. You can see there are secrets here, and I've worked out how to get to some of them. You can jump up like that. Get that roof there. Yeah, again, that's that machine pistola. That's kind of like, again, really Metal Sluggish. Here's a mini boss. But at the same time, whilst it's, lots of people are saying it's a Metal Slug rip-off, it kind of is and it isn't. It's obviously very, very clearly inspired by Metal Slug, but it does stand on its own. It's got its own character and personality. It plays differently in some ways to Metal Slug, but then again, there are certain aspects where it's very, very similar to Metal Slug. But let's face it, Metal Slug's a great game. What's wrong with having a few more Metal Slug games or clones of Metal Slug? I've got no problem with it. I wish there were more, really. Lots of love and attention gone to the graphics and artwork here. Some cool different weapons. You can see that one's like a heat-seeking one. I mean, you could think that these are overpowered, but remember, I'm playing on easy here. And the interesting point there is if you get that pig mask, to try and find all the treasures, I think the downside to that, it makes you fire a lot more slowly. I notice your shots are a lot slower, and actually it takes a lot longer to kill a lot of these vehicles and bosses and things when you have the pig mask on. So yeah, avoid the pig mask. Unless you're just trying to find out where all the treasures are. Because many of them are hidden until you actually shoot a specific thing. You don't know where they are a lot of the time. Anyway, I'm waffling too much. I'll try and get through this bit. Maybe then catch up in the comments. Yeah, there's a treasure up here, I think. You should hear it now. There we go. It's sort of noise. We're coming up against the first end of level boss here now. So again, because I'm playing on easy, this is super, super, super easy. As you will see, I can literally just keep running across to the right and firing, that's it. Occasionally jump when a guy pops out in the new, and it's very easy. But if you play this in the other difficulty modes, it's much, much harder. The attack patterns are different. You can't just do what I'm doing here at all. Watch the little stance now, it's quite cool. Yeah, with the sort of victory things. A lot of attention to detail. The pixel artists they've had on, working on this game have done a fantastic job. So much like Metal Slug, you can see, well, the chickens there are the hostages. So got 15 out of 19 and various treasures and hidden secret things. So this is what I said before. You can pick your routes here, like shock troopers. I'm trying to think the best way to go. Actually, I think we'll go for this. No, maybe not. Go to the mountains one. I think. Let's just see if we miss anything in the comments. Yeah, Neffers, lots of sharp samples as opposed to low rate long one. Exactly, that's what I was trying to say. You said it much more eloquently than I was trying to get across there. It's like a, as you said there, sharper. It's just one long sample, huge sample. And I think they did that with one of the other games, the NG Dev team. I forget what. But there are one or two other commercial Neo Geo games, ones that were officially released back in the day, that do the same thing, and you can tell when you listen to those games. You can tell. Metal Slug, I'll tell you what, Metal Slug 4 is one of them, I think, and I think Metal Slug 5 is one of them. As much as I love Metal Slug 5, if you listen to the audio on that on a PC, it doesn't seem stereo. I think it's mono, and they've done exactly the same thing. They've just like compressed, the whole thing. I think. Anyway, let's go to the mountains. So yeah, this is very reminiscent of Metal Slug. It kind of reminds me of a part of Metal Slug 5 actually, this bit. Going down, oh, I thought I hit that then, going down to the mine. So, there are a couple of moves I didn't mention there that were in the settings, mentioned in the settings, but I haven't shown them or talked about them. One of them is a slide, which you can do like that, which is just like Metal Slug 5. But you can also do an air slide, so whilst you're in the air, if you press the slide button, you slide in the air like that, and whilst you're sliding, you avoid projectiles. So, in that sense, it's quite cool. The way head flies off like that. It's a bit grisly, but nevertheless, it's impressive stuff. Yeah, I'm going to see a lot of me dying on this. It's what I was saying last night. I can't play, talk, and read chat at the same time. Coffee or tea. Reminds me of Contra. Yeah, and it's like I say, if you play the C mode, it's much more like Contra. It's much more fast paced. You get loads and loads of enemies coming at you, and it's actually longer. All of the stages that you've seen, where you select on the map one way or the other, you play them all, play through the entire thing. So perhaps you could argue the best way to play it is play in the C mode. But that said, obviously it takes a lot longer, and you lose the masks, and you also lose the melee. Whereas you get close to these, you can stab them. You can't do that in C mode. They removed it. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. I don't know why at all. I said to them they should change the knife actually, because one of the things with the knife is you can just walk over people. See if you can do it here. You don't even need to press the button. Now, if you think of shock troopers, the thing with shock troopers, you have to actually press the button to actually do a knife, if that makes sense. You can't just hold fire. If I hold fire on shock troopers, all it does is continue to fire. But on this game, you can literally just run over somebody while you're holding fire, and just like that there, and you will knife them. So that's one negative. There's not very many negatives I have to say about this game, but that's one of them. There's another one coming up, I think, on this level shortly, which I think, is a wasted opportunity. We'll see. Get there. I'm playing so badly. One of the benefits with it being the Neo Geo is you can just have more credits, Well, that kind of spoils it. When I play this normally, I don't normally just keep punching credits in. I'll just try and do it with the, I think it's 4 or 5 credits that gives you an AES mode. This game is Kraut, by the way. That's replied to the question by Michael. Yeah, and I just died because of the comments. And again. You can hear the music is really good, despite the fact it sounds a little bit bitty to me, like I say, it's not as good as it could have been. The music in general is very good. I think he did the music to this now. It's the same guy who did some of the music in the other games, actually. I think he did the music in Last Hope. That'll come to me. And you can jump down on platforms by holding the jump button as you press down, as it in trophy level. Smoke Monster! Wow! Surprised to see Smoke Monster here. If you're not subscribed to Smoke Monster, you must check him out. I'm sure everybody knows who Smoke Monster is. He's the chap that originally helped us all with, his quality set of run sets. But he now does lots of streams on YouTube for many other things. Now this is the bit, this is what we're talking about, the wasted opportunity. This is the one part of this game that I think I was looking forward to when I saw the screenshots, but then I thought, when I came to play it, what is the purpose of this? You can't die, all you do is just press the button, jump up and down, try and kill as much as you can, but you cannot die. You are completely impervious to hits here. This is a wasted opportunity. I don't know how they would have improved it. If I was going to improve it, I think I would have given you a certain amount of health or something to make it a bit more tactical. That if you do get hit by things, rather than hitting them, you take damage. So I don't know why. I'm guessing they just ran out of time. This might have been one of the features they added at the end. Nevertheless, it's impressive. But again, that's playing homage to Metal Slug, isn't it? In particular, the first thing I thought when I saw that was Metal Slug Double X. If you played that on the Xbox or your Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, I think it's available on all those platforms. God, it took him out quick. That was incredibly quick. Yeah, if you played it on those systems, you'll know what I mean. He's a big walker, but that is much more challenging, much more elegantly done. Wow, thank you very much, Matt. That's awesome. I didn't expect any donations. Thanks for all you've done and shared with us. You're very welcome. Hopefully I can share some more things that might be useful in future. Right, trying to think which one the best way to go is here now. Second one, I think. I mean, they're all good. All these levels are good. They really are. This kind of reminds me again. Metal Slug. 4 is it? There's a bit of the train stuff. I think there is in 5 as well, actually. But yeah, I like the the variation enemies. You get these little there's women now that come at you with knives there. It's quite cool. You get grenades as well, by the way. I don't think I've thrown a single grenade yet. Yeah, there you go. You get grenades. That's very Metal Slug, straight out of Metal Slug, really. You might be able to see what I mean here. Watch. So I'm pointing upwards. Watch this guy. Oh, he died from an explosion. But the point I was trying to make is that you can be firing in a totally different direction, and if someone runs into you, you'll hit them with a knife. You saw it automatically knife down then. So yeah, that's a negative to this. I don't like that. They should have done it so you got to deliberately tap fire. There's very few things wrong with this though. I think the only other thing is towards the end. I'll talk about that as we get there. Oh, yeah, lost my mask then. See if I can read some of his comments. Game volume is a little high. Let me just pause it a sec so you can turn it down a little bit. It might help if I talk a little bit louder. Let's just go a little bit quieter. How's that? Is that okay? Let's continue. Yeah, don't quit. Hang on, I've lost chat now. There we go, I can see a chat there. Yeah, it took bloody ages to load there. Well, this one floppy. I'm not sure what methods are talking about there. Some game on floppy. DMA design. But yeah, I mean, look at all the attention to detail in the background artwork and stuff. It's really nice. Oh, I saw that coming. One thing you might see on this stream here is flicker, because it's the whole thing about when it captures the frames. If it doesn't catch them at exactly the same timing that the frames are actually displayed, when you get flickering parts, like when you lose a life, you'll notice that on lots of the people's streams. When you lose a life, if the timing is just off a little bit, it looks like the character's completely disappeared. See if I get that mask. Yeah, sometimes it takes a bit of effort to try and work out how to get up to certain. Oh, you can see it there's like a hidden ledge. There we go. Good God. I made it through that bit. Yeah, so as I say, this is also two-player, at the same time, cooperative. And I believe, if you believe what they said, the bump on their website, it's full 60 frames per second as well. And I can believe that, because it might not come out very well on the capture in terms of that, but to my eyes here, when I put it on the TV, it's super fast, the refresh rate. It looks amazing. Yeah, there's a ledge there, isn't there? I think. There's a lot of speedruns from various machines and immune to invisible frames effects by now. Yeah, but you do know what I mean. I've seen it. I see it a lot on other people's videos, and I think, that's what that is. It's flickering because you lost a life. Typically, that sort of thing can happen. Maybe if you capture 50 frames per second, and the game is, your system you're recording is 60 frames, 60 instead of 50. Etc. We get a mismatch there, that's where you're going to get a problem. Some of the little ambient sound effects and things they had, like I could hear some little pigeons cooing and stuff there, and that was quite cool. Those women are really, really difficult actually. There's some ones that are a little bit harder later into the game. There's a woman with a whip that you saw, that's on the intro there when the intro was scrolling around. And she's incredibly difficult. I haven't worked out an easy way to take her down yet, actually. These ones, I was going to say, these ones aren't too bad if you just avoid them when they do the hey-ya. Sort of like, try and jump behind them or jump over them. Yeah, pigeon there again. It's a bit challenging. Right, Retro Gaming, hello, Anthony. Thank you for joining. Yeah, Furby's just joined us as Kraut. There's no S, it's not plural, Kraut. Incidentally, let's talk about that title for a minute, because, you know, straight away I thought, you know, that's quite offensive. When I first heard it, I thought, you know, I certainly wouldn't go with a game name like that. But it comes from a German development team, so yeah, before anyone starts complaining that the developers were, you know, using something that's like derogatory, a term that's derogative. Actually, the developers are German, and they used the term Krautbuster as the name of the game. But yeah, as you can see, you know, it's kind of, it feels like a kind of World War One-ish, World War Two-ish. It's more World War One in terms of the theme, as you perhaps gathered from the intro part. You know, the guys with the tall helmets there, the moustache, you know, kind of look reminiscent of perhaps how people dressed and looked in World War One rather than World War Two. But yeah, it's really good. I like it. I'll show you the artwork and stuff. You know, you get like a mini marquee and stuff with this. Let's get to the end of it. The enemies start getting it a lot more challenging actually over this level on the next. And what you've got to remember, like I say, we're not seeing all the levels here. You'll see half the game on this. Oh, it's so lovely. Just have a Reddit in a minute, I think. So, what have you guys been up to? Anything exciting? Anyone getting any new systems or anything in the next month? Playing so badly. The other thing I'll point out as well, apart from the fact I keep dying, is the cart saves you high scores. You know, perhaps in the EEPROM, I don't know. There is an EEPROM there, obviously, for the settings and things. I'm guessing that's where it gets stored. So any high scores are saved there, which is cool because you're not relying on the MVS battery. That's a nice feature. There was talk when they originally developed this, you know, it's a bit like all these developers, they give you a list as long as your arm of all the features, the wonderful features they're going to come out with, and then, you know, it actually comes out and it's like, well, they did 70% of what they said they were going to do. And credit to the NG Dev team, they did achieve pretty much everything apart from what I'm about to tell you, and that's, they were going to add a little Wi-Fi module onto the cart there. It was going to be one of the first carts with Wi-Fi. I don't know what all of their intentions were. You know, they were talking about doing link-ups and things like that, as well as the high scores being automatically on the internet for everybody. But you see, they tried that before the NG Dev team. They had I don't know, some sort of code system for the scores in some of their other games, and you could visit the NG Dev website, type that code in, and it would register your score and your name. But obviously, you know what happens. People reverse engineer it and work out how to hack it, and that's pretty much, I think, what happened with that. So I think eventually it just got shut down. Yeah, sorry, I'm playing so badly. Oh. It's a good job I can have more credits. Let's take them out. There we go. If I don't concentrate, actually, a lot of this is not that hard, especially on this difficulty. So I've got another end boss coming up here. I'm just trying to read the comments here, so expect me to die. Yeah, so I mean, you could argue that some of these enemies are a little bit predictable, but I mean, look at the way you could die then, you know, if you got set on fire, it's, you know, it's quite good. There's a lot of attention to detail again. Attention to detail is the common phrase within this video. Oh. Yeah, so it's a bit predictable in the sense that, yeah, it kind of looks very similar to other metal slip bosses and things. But at the same time, it's got kind of a unique enough feel to make it different. Oh, there we go. Victory pose. I'm not sure what's going on in the comments though. What you guys are talking about now? It's just something simple. It's a rework of someone else's project. I'd like to make. Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about there. Right, so we'll go to that one because I quite like that. Again, very Metal Sluggish. No, it's not. Is it this one? Yeah, it is this one. Yeah. You go into this little boat. What's the word? Building. You know, it's somewhere on the docks, if you like. Go through here, and I think when we come out, we go on the boat. I think. Yeah, I always wanted an RPG on the Neo Geo. There is an RPG, isn't there? There's Samurai Showdown RPG, which I think is only available at the moment on the Neo CD, and it's in Japanese only. There have been a couple of translation attempts. I think one of them is out there, and it's partial, because I think aren't there 2 acts or stories, or it might even be 3 or 4 acts, and I think only 1 or 2 of them have been done, so you can download, you can download that and play, you know, burn it to a disc and play it on the Neo Geo CD that way. But there's also a talk over the last few years of someone else who started the translation. He'd done a little bit more, but wanted to finish, you know, complete it. And then I think Raz kind of mentioned it might get ported to the MVS and AES. So that would be really cool. It would be the first, you know, proper RPG game on the Neo Geo. I didn't think about having a go at Neo Geo development myself at some point. I would say it's not that, you know, the dev kit's out there, it's not that hard. Obviously it is if you want to get the most out of the system. That sort of stuff takes you time, you know. The performance in a game like this, all the nice features and things that have gone into this, is the summation of, you know, I don't know, several years of the NG dev team working away through the different tiles there, you know, coming up with better routines and ways of doing things to get more efficiencies. Here. Let's try the person grades. Yeah, you can see what I mean about how it gets a bit more difficult though, because I cannot find an easy way to get these guys here. In theory, you know, I was going to say in theory I should be able to fire diagonally and hold the B button down. There we go, took one down. Yeah, much easier than there's only one. Yeah, because it doesn't look like this game is coming to the Neo Geo CD. Yeah, I don't know, I wouldn't say never. One of the things, again, you know, there's 2 ways of looking at it. When you invest in the, well not really invest, but when you support the NG dev team with a game like this, the fear you have is that it's just going to get released on all sorts of different platforms, but the inevitability is that happens. It happened with Fast Striker. Might, depending on the time, might show you that after this, just the first few minutes or something. But yeah, that happened with Fast Striker. If you want Fast Striker, you can get it on the PS4 now for, I don't know, £4 or £5. It's not expensive at all. In fact, I have it on my PS4 as well. So I would say, yeah, does it devalue the original cart? Well, the cart is only worth what you think it's worth to you at the end of the day. You know, if this cart was only worth £20 in 10 years, you know, obviously, yeah, I'd be a bit peed off, but then I think, well, actually, I really wanted it. I got my value out of it, I used it, I played it, I really wanted it. Does that make sense? And I think this is the thing with collecting in general. You get a lot of people out there just collecting, thinking that things are going to go up in value, they're going to be worth crazy amount of money, you know, hogging things to a certain degree. And that isn't the case at all. You can't be in this, you know, in the retro gaming community, really, if you try. Well, you can, but what I'm trying to get is you can't be into this sort of thing thinking it's an investment. Don't treat it as an investment. Nothing's ever an investment. It's the same with the system. You know, you can think you've got an investment there because you've got a system that's super rare, it's mega expensive. Yeah, it is, till it fails. That's the thing, it might not be worth anything then. And if there's no demand for it, it won't be worth anything. I think the other thing when you come to the value of these things, you know, value of games going up, you know, these people are collecting games thinking they've got a mega investment, you know, they paid £1,000 for a rare NES card. What will happen when my generation, our generation, dies out? You know, people who are sort of in the 40s and 50s now, maybe some people a little bit older and slightly younger, but when that generation leaves us, who's going to be that interested to want to collect, you know, every Neo Geo game, every Famicom game, every NES game, every PS2 game, etc., etc. I'd be surprised if it's not a lot less than you think. I think the number of people, it's going to be a lot less. I'm going to compare it to other things. You know, you get people collecting, you know, records, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a bit of an exception because there are more people now collecting records than there perhaps were 10 years ago. It's kind of gone up. Things have turned around, and that's what the new generation interested in collecting records. But with certain things, newer generations aren't quite as enthusiastic about these things as we were because they don't have the nostalgia. And I guess the other thing, you know, look at this from the perspective of 20 or 30 years from now, when you've got God knows how many more systems out there. Who's going to go back and start collecting things from the 80s, 90s, when they're focused on, you know, I don't know, 2000 onwards, etc. Matt Wilson, what is this game? Kraut Buster. Yeah, like I say, not trying to be offensive, that is the name of the game, and it was picked by German developers. Oh. But yeah, this is another level that feels very not sluggish. There are a few not so games I think with boat type bits like this on. I'm trying to think of this one now. There's one where you go on a boat, I'm sure. Yes, Anthony, wife is away. Oh, that's what I get for reading comments at the same time as trying to play. I'll try and power through this now. I'm sure you're getting bored doing this. Yeah, so I think other negatives, I would say, I don't know whether you can tell, but it just feels like some of the music is reused, you know, which is bound to do. They've probably only got like 4 or 5 tracks, and it's probably a good 8 or 9 rounds, maybe even more, although we've only seen half of them on this playthrough. Those dogs are quite cute, although I don't like the blue projectiles they fire off. Grey Mouse, so my son loves 8-bit. Yeah, I think there's going to be exceptions. I think maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong about this whole generation thing, because the thing I'm not thinking of here. Yeah, the thing I'm not thinking of here is all people out there have got kids. You're getting your kids enthused for this stuff, and that's really good. And you know, that's another generation. They might pass it down to the next generation. So it might not be the prophecy of doom that I'm thinking about here in terms of the value of the games and the systems, you know, and lots of things just go into landfill basically. I would hope you don't. I mean, this stuff's not going to last forever anyway. That's the other thing I think people don't realise is you're okay while there are lots of spare systems to harvest parts from, but ultimately, you know, it's a bit of a misconception. People think, you know, if you take really good care of a system, it will last forever. And that isn't the case at all. It doesn't matter what the system is, it doesn't matter how well you look after it, it doesn't matter how well cooled it is, how well cleaned it is, how, you know, cautious you are with static and even lack of use and things like that. Ultimately, it will die. Every semiconductor has a finite lifespan, which is a bit sad really, but that's I guess where the FPGA stuff comes in that we've all been seeing in you know, some of the Kevtris products. You know, you've got replacement SNES, a replacement Mega Drive, both of which I forget the names of, and now the that FPGA board you can get, what's it called? Oh, Mister. I might get a Mister at some point. I know Electron Ash was kindly offering to help me out by sending me some of the bits for it, so I might talk to him again and see if he's got any of those. Perhaps I can buy off him. But yeah, with that Mister, if you're not aware, you should check out Smoke Monster's channel actually, because he does regular updates on the Mister. You know, because they come up with firmware updates every now and again they cover new systems, but it's not just computers and consoles that it supports, it's arcade machines as well. So I think I was looking on there the other week and there was like an update to the Arkanoid core or something, I think. I saw that on Smoke Monster's screen there. And I think Ghosts and Goblins is one of them or something you can play there. So you're getting the authentic, actual arcade experience, you know, the proper hardware. You just need the ROM files there, just like you do with an emulator, but the difference is, with FPGA, you are replicating the original hardware in an FPGA chip. So yeah, it's pretty much, as long as the people who've developed it have got it cycle accurate, which for the most part, that's happened and it continues to happen. They're evolving these things to make it cycle perfect for all these different systems and arcade PCBs. You're playing almost an exact copy. Well, it is an exact copy of the original hardware, and that's a good thing. For preservation purposes, all these chips, let's say, dying eventually. All these systems, they won't be around forever. They will all ultimately die. At least there will be FPGA solutions to that. I am just playing so badly here. Need to find something to watch tonight. I'm not sure what to watch. I've got Netflix. Any suggestions for anything good on Netflix? I've been watching Black Mirror. That's quite cool. Grim Monolith. FPGA chips are too slow. I disagree with that. I think it depends on which FPGA chip you've got. It really does. The cost can be prohibitive, for certain systems. So, faster systems you might struggle with. When I say faster systems, I mean try recreating the Xbox 360 in FPGA. I suspect it probably wouldn't be possible with current FPGAs. It might be, with the very, very, very top of the range. And in fact, that reminded me of something else. You want to look at expensive FPGAs. Did anyone see Dave Jones's last video? I think it was either today or yesterday on EEV Blog. A channel that you absolutely must subscribe to if you're into anything electronics. Yeah, he was looking at that IBM top of the range LCD panel. It's a 4K panel, and it had a couple of I can't remember, Altair or something, FPGAs on there. And he looked at the price for them originally from back when they were used in that monitor, and it was something like $2,000 or $3,000 each. $2,000 or $3,000. That's absolutely insane. But it was reflected in the price. The price of that monitor was like 18 grand, $18,000. Absolutely crazy. But that was back in, was it 2000, I think? So it was one of the first 4K monitors. But yeah, you should check out that video and check out EEV Blog. Got a lot to thank Dave Jones for, really. I've learned so much by watching Dave's videos, and he's just such an interesting, educational, entertaining guy. His last video today was him on his roof, working out why his solar panel system has stopped working. Incidentally, you can see how much harder it's got here. This level is really, really difficult. Those guys with the chain guns there and the ones up on the bottom there are incredibly difficult. Take a lot of hits. Electronash, 110,000 logic elements in the D10 Nano, and that's 130 quid. Yeah, well there you go. That's the thing. You do get an awful lot for your money these days in terms of FPGA. It's coming down all the time. The number of cells are going up, the price is going down as more projects and more hardware out there is using FPGA technology. Can we go up there? No, we can't. It's interesting it says go, but you can't go until you've killed. Oh, you can. It's weird. That must be a little time limit thing. I don't know. After a few seconds, you can't register go. So yeah, these guys kind of remind me of a Bobo on Double Dragon, I think. These bald-headed thugs here roll the barrels at you. Electronash EEV, his blog is great. Right, Retro Gaming EEV. Yep, EEV blog. 4K is early 2000, it's mad. Yeah, it was. I didn't even know such a thing would have existed back then. And I think the interesting thing is, the other thing with that, in that video, I'm kind of spoiling it, you should still watch the video anyway because there's a lot to watch in that video. But back then, you didn't have 4K displays. I think the way that screen works is you had multiple DVI inputs. I think Dave said it was either 1, 2 or 4, couldn't be 3. Because obviously the way it would work is the screen is split up. So, you have 4 inputs, it's split into 4 equal displays, if that makes sense. You can divide the screen into 4 sections, and I think that's how it was working. So, if you wanted to have perhaps a high-res 4K display back then, you perhaps needed 4 graphics cards. You probably still do it with 4 perhaps working together. That was perhaps how it worked, but there was no such thing as a 4K graphics card back in 2000, I don't think. Could be talking rubbish, but that was what I gathered from watching Dave's video there. Yeah, Christian, even CRT topped out at 2000X or whatever it was. Yeah. So you can tell from the music here in this part that we're approaching the end here. You know, there's lots of soldiers like bumming around, hanging around, not doing much there. So yeah, we're kind of approaching the end of this now. I like the music on this level. I quite like that whistling. It's kind of like a whistle thing to the main chorus there. It's quite cool. I would say it'd be nice to see a few different enemies on this level, you know, because all you're doing is covering some of the stuff you've already seen, I guess. But it's a limitation of storage space and stuff at the end of the day, you know, they've only got so much space for this. This is where, yeah, this one's really hard. That woman there with the whip, she is incredibly difficult. As exciting as the whip might seem, she is very difficult to deal with. Oh wow, I managed to take her down, I can't believe it. I think there's a few more of them yet. Normally you get that woman with a whip and you get a couple of the other girls with the knives and things at the same time, and as a combination they're very, very difficult to deal with. Missed that completely there. Good evening everyone, hi CRG. Oh, good, we timed that out then. You saw that, the credits down to 0, the time was down to 0. Me getting over enthusiastic with the A button, I think. So for anyone that doesn't know, the MVS obviously it's an arcade. It was an arcade machine originally. The SNK Neo Geo MVS, and then SNK came out with the AES, which is the home version. The same hardware, just used a different cartridge. And they did that deliberately actually to stop people, I think, primarily taking home carts to the arcade, you know, putting them in arcade machines. And I think the reason being is the pricing, you know, and perhaps protection distribution, you know, that you had to buy the games from certain routes. You couldn't just go to the, you know, I don't know, HMV and buy an AES game and stick it in an MVS cabinet. The thing is, it didn't work though. I don't know if you're aware what some arcade operators did to get around that. Where the AES version was cheaper, say, because obviously it was aimed at the home market, they bought an AES and bought the AES version of the game and consolised the, not really consolised, arcadeised, jamified if you like, the AES. Connected, you know, a jammer edge up and stuck the AES in a cabinet. Lots of, well, not lots of, but some arcade operators did that. It's amazing the lengths people will go to. But I guess when you're dealing with the arcade, where people are making lots of money from these things, that sort of thing's always going to happen. Twice as many nights per evening. I'll probably do another one tomorrow because I've got all this time to myself. May as well. Otherwise, I'm just watching something boring on TV. I think tomorrow we will look at the Archimedes. I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Would you rather look at the C64, Spectrum maybe? I don't know. Archimedes or something else? I mean, I could do the NES or the SNES or even the Mega Drive. What's the preferences? Let me know what people want to see some games on. Annoying line? What's the annoying line? I don't want to read partial comments because I'm not really sure what people are talking about. Archimedes, what's an Ash? Right, here we are, final boss. Well, not quite the final boss, it is the final boss, but obviously it changes venue. As soon as you beat him, you will skedaddle off the screen. Castano, hello, good to see you. I think the last time we met was at Play Expo last year, was it? I think. Grey Mouse, love the C64 myself. Gustavo, sorry for my ignorance, what do you mean, it's like Mr. Mail or something. Yeah, sorry, I'm not really focusing because I'm reading messages again. If you've not gathered, did you see those little things that hover down and fire electricity? they float around, and actually you can jump on top of them to get up there to get that hidden treasure chest. I might be able to do it in a minute if we come back. See if I can just get this guy. This top hat gaming man. Top hat's robots. So I'm trying to think of the things to talk about. Topical. How about the what's it called? That sun brighting. Let's talk about sun brighting. I don't know where that just came from. I think it's because I watched Maddie's video this morning. Has anybody got any opinions on sun brighting? What were your thoughts? I've tried it on one system which I suspected would work on, and that is the Atari 65XE. And from my perspective, you know, just from that test I've done, putting it out there in some 3 days, it does work. Each day it got bright, you know, brighter and brighter and brighter. The yellowing was going away. I think in terms of longevity, I don't think it'll last. I think retro brighting doesn't tend to last anyway, even on my 1200. I know I've said that it hasn't re-yellowed, it hasn't. But if I compare to as it was when I first did it 5 years ago, yeah, this is a tiny, 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 tiny yellow tinge to it. I suspect it will continue to do that. By the time it's as old as it was when I got it from now, if that makes sense, you know, give it another 10 years, say, 15 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it's luminous yellow again. The one thing I would say, I think Maddie was saying, she doesn't like the idea of doing things that have not been tested and we don't know the consequences. And you know, that's a fair comment. But what I would say is, from my experience, when things are yellow, they are super, super brittle. Any plastic that looks not yellowed isn't brittle. And I found that with the SNES, those SNESs, I must have had about 6 or 7 SNES sent to me, you know, for boards where the cases were already smashed, but they've got significantly worse in transit. They're just shattered to pieces. And then the one I de-yellowed myself, you saw in the video there, you might have done, I partially de-yellowed it. And it was super fragile, just handling it to the point where, you know, a few bits broke off while I was trying to de-yellow it. But after having done that, it's had a fair few knocks and it's been really fine. Nothing else is broken. Prior to that, it was super, super, super brittle. So yeah, my personal view, and it is just my view from my experience, is that when things are yellow plastic like that, is way more chance of breaking. And just by virtue of de-yellowing it, you're changing the chemical composition there on the surface, aren't you? And it's just a coincidence. It might not be the same in every single instance, depending on what plastics are there, but just from my experiences, when you get rid of yellow, the plastic seems more resilient. Yeah, let's get to that time again where I am tired. Just catching up with the comments while I bounce up and down the player. Pretty sure H02 speeds up the reaction, but I don't think it's fundamentally different from just putting it out in the sun. Yeah, I think that was my opinion actually, because you do seem to have the same reaction going on, it's just nowhere near as strong. The other reason, and I think it's funny the way my mind works, but thinking about things, it's something I thought of years ago, but I never thought of testing the theory. And that was, in fact, coming back to the Amiga 1200, you know, when I retro-brighted my 1200, it was in a pretty dark room actually. It was in the bathroom most of the time, so there was no direct sunlight, so you can rule out UV. And the interesting thing with that is that almost says that actually neither of those things are absolutely essential. UV is not essential on its own, and H2O2 is not essential on its own. You know, do you see what I mean? So like the two together seem to work really well. But I've had experience of both. I've had experience of just retro-brighting, just using H2O2 with natural, you know, light through windows that block UVA and UVB. It took longer. It took about a week to retro-bright my Amiga 1200 in the bath that way, because there was no direct sunlight. But yeah, the same thing has certainly been witnessed on my Atari 65XE, but it would need, I think it would need weeks out in the sun to retro-bright anywhere near as much as, I don't know what I'm doing here, I'm not focusing. It would take weeks to do the same thing as it would with a bit of H2O2 and some sunlight in a few hours. So yeah. I mean, the one thing I will say is, I don't like the guy who presented it to YouTube, Periphractic. I don't think there's anything lost. He doesn't watch my channel anymore, I don't watch his. He stole some music from Maddie, I don't know if you saw that. It's, yeah, it was quietly sort of covered over after it all happened, but he, and this is just my opinion, you know, I don't want to get done for slander. My opinion, based on the evidence that was put out there, the music I listened to, the comparisons that were done, it was almost a copy. It really was. It was certainly based, the music he came out with was based on her music, but anyway, there you go. So you can see we completed it, that was on easy. And as I say, if you play this game through on the other modes and the harder difficulties, you know, obviously it's more challenging, you get more, certainly on C mode, constant mode, you get different routes and things. Let's just try and catch up with some of the comments here. I don't know whether anyone's suggested anything for tomorrow other than the Archimedes. Yeah, so we've got Archimedes from Electronash. Sorry, if I do miss a question here and it's super important, please just post it on the comments afterwards, just remind me. I will watch this back afterwards from editing, because I did have some morons last night pretending to be various historic dictators in recent history, let's say, and had to block them. So hopefully we've not got any more of those tonight. Yeah, Daniel Mantiamo, best way is part of ongoing research. Yeah, I totally agree. But I think the thing I would say there, you know, and this is kind of going the opposite way from what Maddie was saying, really. We are part of that research. You know, who's going to do the research? We're just going to sit around now and just wait for some leading scientists to come out with a theory. No one's interested unless you actually go out there and try these things yourself, or make contact with people who are experts in that. And you know, let's say I know somebody who is an expert in materials, Andrew. I could go to him and say, look, what's your view on this? What do you think? And he would want to go away and do experiments and things, but ultimately we can do those experiments. We are part of that experimentation process. So yeah, you wouldn't want to go and Retrobrite or Sunbright, your super rare system, you know, but it's not as destructive as people think. You know, it's not like your Amiga 1200 is going to shatter into pieces because you've Retrobrite it. Mine's over here, and you know, I can whack it. You know, I can hear it. I can hit the plastic, you know, really hard on my hands. I'm not going to break it. They don't go super fragile, and when you've Retrobrite them, they're stronger anyway. So, yeah, I would say don't be afraid of experimenting, but don't risk your valuable systems. It's up to you at the end of the day. Just missed that there. I had an O2 Octane Live. Talk about phones or something, I think. My gadget, what game is this? File 976. Yeah, this is Kraut. Finished it now. You missed it. I will upload the video later. But yeah, so you can see what I'm in there. It stores your scores down the EEPROM on the cart. Right, I think I'm going to get off and get some tea. It's 8 o'clock, but I will be back tomorrow night. So perhaps if you've not posted here now, I'll have a look to see what's been posted. But other than the Archimedes, post your suggestions for another system tomorrow, maybe Mega Drive, SNES. Could go back to the C64, we could do the Amiga. Just let me know what you'd like to see, something, you know, some video of, and we'll play some games on one of those systems. Where I can, I'll try and show something that's perhaps people haven't seen. That was one reason why I decided to show Krautbusters. I could have played Metal Slug or something on here tonight, but most people have seen Metal Slug to death. Presumably it's always nice to see something different. Cheers, Christopher Magnum, thank you. And thanks everybody, thanks for all your comments. As I say, if I miss anything, I will catch up with it as I read this back later, and I'll perhaps get back to you or post in the comments below the video that's uploaded. Thanks a lot guys, take care and have a good night. Bye.